Welcome to another installment of Power Up Mondays with your boy Kamogelo. This is a segment brought to you proudly by Power Couples, and as you already know, this is just a time for us to power up our minds, power up our week, power up our marriages, and just to share practical experiences that will build each other up. So I'm quite excited about today's segment, and it's really just a laid back conversation that I want to have with the gents out there. But before I get into that, I know we've just received the news of the extension of the lockdown. I trust that you guys are putting it to good use and keeping it on lockdown, if you know what I mean. If I heard the president correctly, he did say that we need to continue rendering essential services. I'll leave it there. Anyways, so yeah, man. So today I just want to chat around expectations. I believe we all come into marriage with a lot of expectations, and in more instances than none, these expectations actually end up stealing our joy. I'm not saying don't expect anything in your marriage, but I'm just gonna, to make it more practical, I'm gonna give you some examples of what I'm referring to, with regards to expectations. So here I am, a young chap at the age of 25, recently got married, and I have to be honest with you. The first few months, and even the first few years, in fact, not even months, it was really marked by a lot of unmet expectations, and that kind of always made me, and I'm an introvert by nature. So with those expectations that I had, some that I had actually not even communicated to my partner, but I expected her to meet each and every one of those expectations, regardless of whether she knew of the expectations or not. And when my expectations were not being met in marriage, I found myself being grumpy at times and just, retracting from conversations, and she would have to play psychic and try to guess what the issue is, And it dawned upon me that, there's a lot of people, and gents in particular, that could be faced with the very same thing, and I just noted down a couple of points in terms of how I addressed. This is nothing exhaustive, it's nothing scientific, it's just to give you a practical approach in terms of how I managed to deal with or to bridge the gap between expectations and reality, And I jotted down a couple of points, and I think the biggest one for me was to communicate. As gents, we often don't communicate, and a lot of our expectations are derived from conversations that we have with our peers, and conversations that we see, or dialogues that we are privy to in a media space or on media platforms, and we take that and we build it into our own expectations that we come into marriage with, and that causes a big issue. And let me give you a typical example. Sex, and I don't want to narrow this discussion, because more often than not, when we discuss marriage, it always ends up in a discussion around sex. But I had expectations in terms of, or maybe let me not even start with sex. Let me break it down, and this holds true for a lot of guys. The first expectation that I had was with regards to my wife performing her wifely duties, and that goes, it includes things like cleaning, laundry, and and cooking, and obviously sex as well. And my wife was still a student when we got married, and she started working, but then she ended up in her own business. But I'd come from work and she hasn't cooked, as an example, and I'd become grumpy, because I've got an expectation. I'm thinking, I go out there, I work the entire day, and I come home, I expect to find food, and she's probably thinking I'll cook later, I just want to spend time with my man, and again, you've got a misalignment of expectations, and that just, I'd get home and be grumpy in the afternoon for no apparent reason, and I wouldn't tell her why I'm grumpy, and again, there was a period where we lived apart, I would come home over weekends, when we were staying in Midrand. I'd come home over weekends, and coming home, I'd expect that, I'm coming with my laundry and everything, and on Saturday morning, I expected to be up and doing my laundry, so that when I leave on Sunday, I've got clean laundry. but and she's thinking, oh, my man is coming home, I'm gonna spend time with him. Again, misalignment of expectations, and we end up missing the moment because I have not communicated my expectation and she has not communicated hers. And one thing that we need to understand is that, more especially, and it holds true for both, actually, for both male and female, that the roles that we model in marriage are a derivative of our role models growing up. We end up emulating what our role models did, and those role models, because you spend the most amount of time with your parents, they subconsciously become your role models, and that's the role that you model in your union, and that's something that we need to unlearn, because I had to understand, the expectations that I had is because of what I saw my mother doing for my father, and I had to come to a point of realizing that I am not married to my mother. I should not expect my wife to do the things that my mother did. Similarly with her, she should not expect me to do the things that her father did. And that's why there's that saying, I'm sure you are aware of it, that more often than not, a guy ends up marrying someone that's similar, or that's similar in character to his mother. And actually, that's true, because you go out there looking for your mother in marriage, and that's something that I had to really come to unteach myself and learn to communicate, and that worked, because right now there's a lot of things that we don't even have to talk about. She knows, because we've already set that foundation, So communication, that's the first thing that I had to do, and you need to understand that you are forming a new union. You are not continuing your parents' marriage. That's a very critical point. And the second thing that I had to really come to learn, and I'm still learning even now. I mean, we're 8 years in marriage, and this is something that it's still happening on a daily basis. So the first one was communication. The second one is concessions. You have to make trade-offs. I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day. We had a braai, and we had this discussion around expectations, and he said something, and he's like, my wife knows that I don't touch the bed. Even if I'm the last one to wake up, I don't touch the bed. I wake up and I go take a shower, have breakfast, and I'm out. And already there's two expectations, if you would have listened to what I said. The first one is then the wife needs to make the bed. The second one, after he takes a shower, he expects to have breakfast ready. But the irony in all of this is that he's working, he's a professional, and the wife is a professional as well. Does it mean that she's got more hours in her day than what he does? No, it doesn't, and that's where trade-offs come to play. You need to make concessions. You cannot have your bread buttered on both sides, and I said to the Oak that, if you're going to expect all of this from her, then you need to be able to free up her time, then you need to bring the bacon and let her sort out the things that you're expecting, but you can't expect her to bring the bacon and also be the one that's responsible for turning that bacon into a meal. That's you need to make trade-offs and help each other, and that's the other thing where a lot of times as gents, we look at other ladies out there and they look better than our wives. She's all hot and all this, and then guys end up getting side chicks, and it's simple. Your wife is burning the candle on both ends, and sooner or later there will be no light. That's when you get people saying there's no spark in the relationship. That's because the candle has been burned from both ends. You have all these expectations, you are not making concessions, and you still want to make love at the end of the day. And she must be up, ready, hot, and waiting. Make concessions. So that's something that we need to take very seriously as guys. And I mean, the only reason that side chick looks as hot as she does is because she's only got one need to meet. She's got all the time in the world to do her hair, and she's got all the time in the world to practice Kegels and all these things, and yet your wife is burning the candle on both ends, and you expect her to be at the same level. So that's one thing that we need to be quite mindful of, and mindful of time. So the other thing that I looked at was change. So we need to communicate, be willing to make concessions, and thirdly, change. There are certain things that you will need to change. in your life. There are certain things that you need to change in your mind. You know, you've been single, most of us, we've been single for a whole lot longer than what we've been married. So there's a lot of practices that we need to change in order for us to be able to lay a hold of every sweet spot in our marriage, you know. And lastly, give it time, you know, give it time. It's not going to happen overnight. As I said, I mean, I've been in marriage with my wife for 8 years now, and to date, we're still going through all of these steps. We need to communicate, we need to make concessions, be willing to change, give it time, you know. And the more you get in tune and the more you get aligned with each other, the sweeter it becomes over time, you know, the more that you will enjoy your union. So that's yeah, those are the practical steps that I took in ensuring that we get this right, you know. And I mean, like I said, it's a non-exhaustive list. There's no science to it. Every relationship is different. So I'm just sharing what worked for me. And let's chat as fellas. You know, if you've got expectations that are not being met, let's chat. And I know this episode is a bit longer than others, but I just intentionally took the decision just to chat, you know, and give you some of the ways that have worked for me. So yeah, man, I trust that you enjoyed this, and let's continue to connect and yeah, like and share. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. We are part of one community. And before I forget, shout out to Topless. If you can see, I'm always kitted in fresh Christian t-shirts. That's my wife, a company that she owns. She does branding, so please hit them up and place your order. Really affordable, great quality, and you'll always look fresh. Super. Thanks guys, and let's catch up again next week. Have a blessed week. Super.